Hey everybody, and welcome to your rest day for week 2 of the Fellowship Training Party. Today I'm going to quickly talk about the training formula. I'm going to talk about RPE and also do a little look ahead at the workouts that are to come. First off, just a quick recap. We had a great turnout week 1. Thanks so much for showing up. Please feel free to send feedback and constructive criticism to me on Discord via DM. If you got any ideas for improvements or changes you'd like to see, let me know. I'm happy to look at it. And then, yeah, just write down your week 1 FTP. We will look back at it. Some sources don't necessarily record what your FTP was the first time or when you do a ramp test. So just write it down somewhere, either in the notes on your Strava or something like that. Just write down what your final result was so we can look back at it later. All right, so to start it off, I'm going to talk about the training formula. The training formula is stress plus rest equals adaptation. Stress is going to be your workout. It's whenever you're working above homeostasis, which is your body's sort of natural baseline. Rest would be being at that homeostasis, not being in an elevated stress state. And then adaptation is the physiological changes that your body makes to address the demands of the stress that you imposed upon it in that stress phase. So what that effectively means is that uh, the training formula is you add stress to your body by working out, then you take a rest, and then your body adapts. Training depletes our ability to perform, and rest restores it. And then if you allow enough rest, you actually get a super compensation effect, which is a growth effect out of this cycle. So if you look at this chart down below, we've got our workout here, which leads us into a depleted state. We rest, we come back up to our baseline, and then we get a little bump up above our the baseline before we did our workout. That's that super compensation. The amount of rest that we need to recover from that initial stress, that's sort of the length of this this restoration here depends a lot on how deep we go down in this fatigue portion of the curve. So this portion changes based off of how difficult the workout is, and then we have this long curve of restoration that is generally a similar slope regardless. So if you think about your training zones, zone 1 sends you the shallowest, makes the littlest amount of fatigue, littlest amount of depletion, and that only takes maybe up to a few hours to recover from. Zone 2 is a little bit deeper, Zone 3 is a little bit deeper, and so on until you get into like anaerobic and neuromuscular work, and that can take 48 up 2 to 3 days to recover from completely. This all varies by individual, but this is sort of a good guideline that the deeper you go, the more intense your workout, the longer it's going to take to recover from that. So what's the difference between resting enough and not resting enough? Well, it's the difference between making steady improvements in ability to perform versus making steady depletions in our ability to perform. Not resting enough means that we don't come back up to our baseline before we impose more fatigue to it, and then we have to start our our restoration process from deeper down. And then if you continue that cycle, you can quickly reach a non-functional overreaching state where you are training and training and training, but your body just you're so far down the fatigue hole that you actually are you're not even getting any super compensation effect, or what super compensation you're getting is actually just bringing you back to an old depleted state. Or if you continue it too bad, you can get what's called overtraining syndrome, and that has like prolonged health effects. It can take months, years to really recover from. It's a deep biological protection process trying to keep you from destroying yourself. Um, Compare that to this blue line, this blue model here, where you allow yourself to get into this super compensation state, and then we impose our next training. Well, our fatigue is only going to take us down, a portion below our old baseline, and then we recover enough again, we get a super compensation, and then our next training takes us back down, and maybe our fatigue state is our old baseline, and so on. And so in this way, if you allow yourself enough rest, you can continually improve your ability to perform versus continually depleting yourself until you're destroyed. As I showed in the earlier slide, the different sorts of efforts have different recovery durations because of that level of fatigue that we implement during the workout. And this is why if you do zone 2 work in between your high quality work, that sweet spot, that zone 4, that VO2 max work, that you're doing yourself a disservice by uh, adding in some unnecessary harder efforts. You're just increasing that fatigue and making your recovery duration a lot longer. There is some evidence, however, that some sprint work during zone two can be beneficial in some ways, and it is often a good time to put in some sprint work if you're being intentional about it and thinking about what day of the week to do it. You don't want to do this in every zone two work, but maybe choose one zone two day of the week that you want to incorporate a sprint. And then if you are going to incorporate a sprint, you need to make it a proper sprint. I see a lot of people, they go for their zone two ride and they get a little bored and they decide that they're going to sprint, but they don't really go for it. And the thing about sprinting is that you kind of need to push you sort of maximum effort in order to get the benefit from the training, to get that neuromuscular benefit. So I'm going to quickly cover just what that would look like. That would be 2 to 4 reps. You want to wait till you're good and warmed up, but 2 to 4 reps over the course of your zone two ride. And it's going to be a 10-second maximum effort. You're going to be trying to push as hard as you can on the pedals for 10 seconds. You don't need to do longer than 10 seconds because 10 seconds is about as long as that neuromuscular pathway can be active before it's exhausted. So just uh, yeah, do your zone two work for 15, 20 minutes, and then hit a 10-second all-out maximum sprint. And then what you're going to do after that is you're going to rest at least 3 minutes and ideally closer to 5 minutes before you try this again. If you short the amount of rest, then say you only wait 1 minute before you try your 10-second maximum effort, you're only going to be able to manage a smaller percentage of that maximum effort. So let's say, for example, your first 10-second maximum sprint was 1,000 watts. Maybe after 1 minute, you're only able to put out 800 watts. And if you're only putting out 800 watts, then it's no longer really training your sprint the same way as pushing 1,000 watts. Um, we know that it takes 3 to 5 minutes for that system, that neuromuscular system, to recharge. So you need to wait at least that long before you're able to hit another maximum effort sprint that's much closer to that 1,000 watts that you did in the first rep. And then, yeah, repeat that uh, for a total of 2 to 4 reps. And that would be some proper sprint work. But like I said, don't do this in every zone two ride. Maybe pick one zone two ride a week to do this in. If you're working out with the fellowship on Tuesday and Thursday, and you're doing a zone two ride on Saturday, that could be a great time, or zone two ride on Sunday, that could be a great time. Try to separate it from the rest of your efforts. I wouldn't do it on a Wednesday zone two ride or something like that. And then just quickly, I'll talk about zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 efforts that you might want to incorporate in your Z2 because Z2 can be boring. But the first thing I'll just have you do is ask yourself, why are you incorporating those? What sort of benefit are you hoping to achieve? Um, if you look into sort of the processes for training these higher intensities, you'll start to realize pretty quickly that there isn't really any benefit to incorporating them into your zone 2 work. They're just adding fatigue, and you're not actually getting much training effect because the durations that you need to ride at in those zones are longer than most people will incorporate in their zone 2 ride. And if they're longer, then it's not a zone 2 ride anymore. It's a zone 3 ride, or it's a zone 4 ride, or it's a zone 5 ride. And yeah, you've kind of lost your purpose in doing the zone 2 ride in the first place. So I would say, yeah, really try not to do any efforts in zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. There's no real reason, there's no real benefit, and I think, yeah, you can just skip those. All right, so let's get into RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion or relative perceived exertion. It doesn't really matter what the acronym stands for, but what it means is it's a qualitative measure of your effort. It's basically how does the effort feel in your body. And I've got this good chart here provided here found it from Wahoo online, but I think it's pretty accurate. And it provides some RPE on the left and then how it feels on the right. And then it also provides sort of um, some guidelines for what sort of zones are typically associated with those RPEs. So this will be a good chart to refer back to going forward. And yeah, so RPE is very useful, particularly for riding in these sort of sweet spot and lower zones, because in these lower zones, the exact power that we're riding is not as important about. as trying to get the appropriate amount of stress on the aerobic zone. Like there's no real magic between riding at 87% of your FTP versus riding at 93% of your FTP. There's actually not going to be very much difference in the level of adaptation that you're going to get from those, but there will be a really big difference between the amount of stress that you're getting from riding at a 9 out of 10 difficulty or 9 out of 10 RPE versus like a 7.5 out of 10 RPE. The amount of stress that your body's your body is feeling and that is showing up as perceived effort uh, is going to affect, how long it's going to take to recover from this effort and things like that. So we're trying to hit a rather than trying to hit specific power numbers at sweet spot levels or zone two levels. Uh, it's better to it's better actually to ride to RPE. Um, and this is partially because, day to day, our threshold power is not the same. It's not a fixed number. We don't take a ramp test and like that's our RPE at every hour of every day. Um, Depending on all sorts of environmental factors like the heat and humidity, um, how well fed we are, how well you slept the night before. These things can affect what our threshold power is on the day. And so, you might show up to the workout and 93% feels really easy, really normal, sweet spot. You could ride there for an hour and it's no big deal. Or you might come into it and 2 days later and 93% feels extremely hard and you are not able to speak in a full sentence anymore and these sorts of qualitative things. It feels very stressful. Um, and in that case, yeah, you'd want to just lower the power just a little bit and try to meet the stress demands that we're looking for rather than the strict powers. So yeah, we want to adjust our power to meet our RPE desires, especially for these aerobic efforts. When we get up to like VO2 max levels and sprint efforts, that's when you're going to want to be a little bit uh, more rigorous about hitting your power targets. But even there, um, we want to RPE will be important and be something to think about. But uh, basically, yeah, I would say use this chart going forwards for your unstructured zone 2 workouts, as well as our sweet spot workouts. I will provide RPE targets in the group workout descriptions going forward. And as you're completing the workout, all you've got to do is just adjust the bias. That's that percentage on the workout to make sure that uh, your RPE matches the prescribed RPE or the desired RPE rather. So for most sweet spot workouts that we're doing now, ideally your first rep should start at around a 5 or a 6, and then towards the end of the whole workout, those harder intervals should reach to like a 7 out of 10 or maybe an 8 out of 10 as you start to fatigue. Um, if you find yourself in this 9 out of 10 zone where you are out of breath and self-preservation is kicking in, you're not able to speak in like a full sentence and things like that anymore, then you want to dial that back. Um, yeah, so I'll provide RPE targets going forward, adjust the match. You will lose more fitness by working too hard and generating that unnecessary fatigue by uh, that that stress than you will by just pushing a few less watts. We're trying to manage our recovery times um, as we talked about in the rest section of this. So that's all these things sort of feed together here. You can also track the RPE that you experience on the workout on intervals.icu. If you go to your settings page and scroll down for a little bit, and you can tell it to prompt you when you log in and select an activity, it's going to ask you how hard did that, how hard, what was your RPE and how did you feel? So you can say that it was an 8 out of 10 RPE and I felt strong, or it was an 8 out of 10 RPE but I felt weak. Like those two things can add some context, or how you felt and how the workout felt can add some context to each other. And this can help you tell if it's a trend that if your RPE is a trend or if it's just a one-off time. Like maybe you have one workout where the RPE comes in too high, um, or if versus all of your workouts are coming in with your RPE too high. Like if all of your workouts are coming in RPE too high, that might mean that your FTP is set too high. But if just one of them comes in too high, it could be for any number of reasons, like maybe you were sick or underfueled or tired. And then also, yeah, just make some notes on your file about how you felt. And that way, if you come back to this same workout, then you can compare compare the RPEs and compare how you felt, and you can get some context off of yourself. Now I'll quickly talk about the workouts that we're going to do this week. On Tuesday, we've got the workout Aerobic Conditioning from Zwift scheduled. This one we're going to run at just regular 100% bias to start with. This one should be an RPE of 5 or 6, growing to a 7 or 8 over the course of the workout. We are increasing our accumulated duration at that sweet spot intensity to 24 minutes this time. So last week we were in the 15 to 18 minutes, so we're adding a full another 6 minutes of sweet spot time onto this. So make sure you come prepared to work a little bit harder for a little bit longer this week, but it shouldn't be too much more. It should be achievable. If you are a mid-C division rider or under, I would say probably just do the workout. It'll be plenty of work. If you're a high C and up, you could do the workout and consider doing a 20 to 30 minute extension. On Thursday, we've got the workout Ramp It Up. And the bias is going to be 100% just normal again on this one. Again, this one's going to be a 5 or 6 RPE, growing to a 7 or 8 over the workout. We're again increasing our accumulated duration. We're going to go from 24 to 32 minutes in this workout. So this is going to be probably one of our biggest feeling jumps. So try to come fresh for this one, especially if the last workout felt hard. This one's going to be definitely a burner. So for many of you. So again, if you're mid C and under, go ahead and just do the workout. If you're high C and up, you can do the workout and add a 20 to 30 minute extension. And that's all I've got for you this week. So yeah, so excited to see all of you at the workouts on Tuesday and Thursday. Catch you later.